Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular public meeting of the North Brunswick Township Board of Education for Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Ali.
Present.
Mr. Brockman.
Here.
Mr. Carter.
Here.
Ms. James.
Present.
Ms. Keefe.
Here.
Mr. Liguori.
Here.
Dr. Patel. Ms. Toth.
Here.
And Mr. Wen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, the public notice of this meeting, which included the time, date, and location, was distributed by 3 p.m. on Sunday, December 25th, 2022 in the following manner. Posted on the bulletin board reserved for announcements in the board office, 25 Linwood Place, North Brunswick, New Jersey. Mailed to the Home News Tribune, the Sentinel, and the Clerk of the Township of North Brunswick, and delivered to the 9 duly elected board members. Good evening to everybody who's joining us this evening. We have one presentation, and we will get going. Thank you.
We have Mrs. Mercy Chang, who is our Director of Accountability and Special Programs, and she will be giving us a presentation on the 2022 Fall Start Strong Assessments. And each of you has a paper copy in front of you if you can't see the big screens as well.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Probably better if you hold it.
Take it out. All right, how's that? Good evening, thanks for joining us. New board members, welcome. Student reps, board members, and my colleagues. I'm going to try to be as brief and concise as I can. I'm here to share the Fall 22 Administration Start Strong results for our district. We administered the assessment in 2 different windows, at the high school, September 28th through the 30th, and at the elementary school, October 6th through the 7th, and the same week, grades 5 through 8, October 10th through the 12th. We did receive preliminary results, October 26th, which I quickly uploaded for our colleagues to view. Unfortunately, those are not results we're allowed to share out with families as of yet. They're initial results, but they did help us get started on taking a look at what we needed to do to help our students make adjustments to curriculum, that sort of thing. December 23rd, we received the paper copies. So by now, most families of students who took Start Strong have received a paper version of the individual student score report. And hopefully, if they have questions, they reach out to their school principal or myself or the various people in our district who are here to support you. So just want to give you a little overview of this assessment because it's only our second year using it. Last year we did it at the request of the state because there was no NJSLA. So they wanted to give us something to utilize to get some data. This year we did it again and they explained they would like some longitudinal data. So now they have 2 years that they can compare if they need to. These assessments are based on a pre-selected set of standards, so not all of the standards. Someone decided which ones they would prioritize. They're shorter than NJSLA, about 40 to 45 minutes. They didn't replace our local benchmarks. As you have heard many times, we do administer many assessments. All of them have value in different ways, so these we had to give on top of our assessments. And they do not replace this year's NJSLA, which we are already preparing for. The NJSLA released item bank, so those are questions that the state no longer uses, are some of the questions that they utilize for the Start Strong assessment. So in this case, we can see the questions, which is really nice. I can even see how the student answered. What I don't have that I do like having for NJSLA is a state comparison, so I have no idea how we performed as it relates to the state. That's often helpful to us because it helps us see if we're kind of in the middle where everyone else is, or if we're falling far short, or if we're exceeding expectations, but they didn't provide any state comparisons. The other thing I wanted to share with you was the number of questions per test, because I think it's helpful to know. ELA was 10 questions across the board, no matter the grade. Math, it ranged from 20 to 24 questions, depending on the assessment. and all science tests, 6, 9, and 12 were 25 questions. So all of the results are based on those question responses. Oh, and I'm not clicking, I'm so sorry. It's hard to hold it, I click. But you have it in front of you, like, ooh, did I turn it off? There you go. Somebody remind me to click, okay? Just in case you needed some background, the assessments are given based on the student's current level, but were designed with previous year's content in mind. So if you were a 4th grader, you did take the ELA 04, but that was based on grade 3 ELA content. But again, only 10 questions and not sure the variety of standards hit, okay? So if you were in grade 9, you took the ELA 9, but it was based on grade 8 content. Where it starts to get more complicated is math. Not for our little students, but our older students, especially grade 8, grade 9 students in algebra, it gets a little bit tricky. They take this test for their grade level, but it's based on content of the year before, but technically, especially for algebra and geometry, I just want to point out, the Algebra 1 students took the grade 8 math test, but the test focused on standards related to algebra. So if they hadn't yet mastered that or hadn't been taught that in grade 8, then it would look like they didn't understand algebraic concepts, if that makes sense. And then the geometry students took the geometry test, again focused on 8th grade math with a focus on geometric concepts. So if in Algebra 1, or in grade 8, they didn't get a lot of geometry content because that wasn't the course they were learning, then they would not have been able to answer some of those questions. Algebra 2 is easier. If you were taking Algebra 2 at the start of the year, your test was based on Algebra 1 content. Any questions on that? All right. Grade 6, 9, and 12 students took the science test. The 12th graders, I think, were very surprised, and the 12th grade science assessment is based on high school content, which means anything from grade 9 to 11. So I imagine that some of the content has been forgotten by that point, but they didn't specify, it was just high school content. A couple things to consider when you are listening to the data or the performance of our students. Obviously consider the impact of COVID-19 on learning, which we continue to address. We can't compare our MJSLA results to Start Strong results, and these were not designed to predict future performance on MJSLA. So it is not indicative of how our students will perform in March, April, May, when we start MJSLA. What the state does hope the Start Strong results will do for us is help us with curriculum planning, revisiting prerequisite concepts and skills. It's something that Dr. Johnson and his team is always doing, revisiting curriculum, evaluating our scope and sequence, should we be teaching things in different orders. And the other hope was that parents, families would collaborate with their teachers, with the individual student report, and discuss the results, but as you know, they just received them. So at this point, we've given several other assessments, and we like to use fresh data. So we've had a few calls, and we're happy to tell people what we're doing to help students who scored in the strong support needed category, but we also have updated data that is a little bit more timely at this point. Okay, this is so tiny, but I just want to tell you how many kids we tested. 2,797 for ELA. It's always a little more for math because you're taking the assessment at the high school based on your course, not on your grade. So 3,094 students in math, and we tested 1,265 students in science for a total of over 7,000 tests within a matter of about a week, so it's pretty impressive. Thank you to the STCs. I don't know if they watch board meetings, but they really are the people who help us pull this off. So let's get started with the data. I try not to do too much highlighting, but I do want to point out a few things. Anywhere you see a green is me pointing something positive that I think is something to celebrate. Anywhere you see an orange is obviously an area that we have looked at and are hoping to address and have been addressing. So by grade level, you have 4th through 10th took the ELA Start Strong. And there were only 3 performance levels on Start Strong versus 5 on NJSLA. That's why they don't want us comparing. And what I see when I look at this is that if we add together the some support needed, which is the middle category, and your less support needed, which is obviously where you want to score, those 2 numbers together are often higher than our more support needed, which is to me a positive sign. It means more of our kids don't need support than do need support. But there are places, and you'll see as I present the data, where definitely, it points to something that we need to investigate, right? Continue to work on with our students. So our 10th graders, I just want to highlight, did really well on their ELA assessment. And our 8th graders seem to need the most support on their ELA assessment. I'll just give you a minute to look at that, because then it's going to get into school-specific data. Then we have school comparisons for our elementary because we happen to have 4. And you have Judd, tested 93 kids, and we had, if we combine our some support needed and our less support needed, 55% of our students are in need of less support or no support versus 45 in Judd who needed support. At John Adams, we tested 91 students, and the same, higher percentage of students who need less support or no support versus the percentage of students who need more support. The only place where that wasn't true was Parsons, where 47% of the students needed some support or less support versus 52 needed support. To me, obviously that makes sense. Parsons has a high population of English language learners. I actually have the exact number for you because it is a little bit more than the other schools. And it does impact, their ability to read an entire text in English and not only read it, decode it, but understand it, and the nuances of the English language, the idioms, the figurative language, things that they really aren't able to do yet because they're still just learning how to speak the language, some of them. Looking for my number here. I wrote it on one of these papers. I feel like the Jeopardy song is playing in the background. I'll find it for you, okay? So we'll skip to English language arts at grades 5 and 6. This is Linwood School now, so sort of, and we're going to call it an intermediate school. 66. These are great numbers, super impressive. 66% of the kids combined with some support needed and less support needed, which is much higher than the 34% who needed support, and 58% of the 6th graders. So the 5th grade is really rocking it there, and we'll be sure to continue that work in the other grades. Same for 7th grade. When you combine some support and less support, 63% of our students and 37 needed strong support. Again, hard to know exactly what, because there was only a certain number of standards tested, but at least we have a place to start. 52% of 8th graders when you combine some support and less support. And when you go to the high school, 9th, did I skip that? Still to 2? There you go. Go to high school, also really nice numbers. Here, our 9th graders did really well. 61% of them need some support or less support versus 39% of them needing some strong support. And there's no definition, of strong support. Just you kind of get an idea, right? Like they need more, they need a little bit, they need almost nothing. It's kind of the 3 levels. There's no formal definition of the 3 levels. And then in 10th grade, 62% of the students when we combine some support and less support. Any questions about English language arts before we go to math? No? Okay. We have some highlighting here too. We have not as high percentages as English language arts. And a lot of that is due to how difficult it is to do mathematical concepts on a computer, I think. You know, the kids use a lot of manipulatives, blocks, temp-based, a lot of tools, right? And when you're doing that with your hands, it's so awesome because you can really make a connection in your brain. When you're doing that on the computer, a little bit harder, I would imagine. I didn't have to take computerized tests, so I can't know for sure. I just know how much they utilize and rely on those tools. And they get to use them digitally, but we all know that's not quite the same. So our percentages in 4th grade, you can see that 29% of the students need less support, but that's also the highest less support. So it's way different from ELA, where I think the highest less support was 44%. And then in 8th grade, always happens because so many of our 8th graders are taking algebra, so it makes our algebra numbers look really great, but then it makes our 8th grade numbers not look super great, so just always keep that in mind. It's showing that 69% of our 8th graders need strong support. And we go to school comparisons. We have Judd again, grade 4. Same as before though, even though the numbers of less support aren't as high as we would like them to be, when we combine those two last levels, it's still a higher number than the number of students who need strong support. So at Judd, 55%, when you combine the two levels. At John Adams, 63%, which is amazing. Livingston Park, it's equal, 50% need strong support, and when you combine the last two levels, 50% don't. And at Parsons, we have the same issue, and I found my number. Parsons has 67 ESL students right now, which is about 12% of their population. They have 2-3 ESL teachers right now. We're really supporting those students. They tend to live near New Brunswick, and the families really love coming to North Brunswick, and we're just trying to adapt to the increase. I'll tell you the number from last year to this year. I think it's a really interesting number. And then grades 5 and 6, you've got 44%, so again, not as high as ELA. Still have more students who need more support in both grade levels, in both 5 and in 6. And in grades 7 and 8, we've got competing, you know, the 7th grade is doing the best. 52% of them need some support or less support. The 8th grade, again, because of the Algebra 1 moving up to that course, looks like it needs more support, which is a high number, 69%. And then algebra was even, again, 50% of the students needing strong support and 50 not. The most impressive number, obviously, is geometry. Only 1 student needed more support, and all the rest of the students, 4 of them only needed some support, and 46 of them needed less support. So that's pretty impressive, and hopefully we keep moving the kids in that trajectory of those math courses. Because I think eventually all of it comes together, and then they are here in this geometry world. MBT HS. There we go. We've got high schoolers taking Algebra 1 who seem to struggle a little bit more than the other courses. Combined, only 19% of them have the need for some support or less support. So 81% of them more support needed. That would be all of your students at the middle school who were still taking Math 8 at middle school, who then go to high school and have to take Algebra 1. And then geometry, 64% of students needed strong support, and Algebra 2, 47%. So Algebra 2 would be the shining star here. Any math questions?
I had a
Sure.
quick question on I guess it's slide 16.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Let me find that.
And this may be, I know you mentioned that there was some trickiness with the grade 8, but for the Algebra 1 and the Algebra 2, both of those, neither of those added up to 100%. So
Oh, sorry. There should be little caveats on some of them that say percentages may not total 100% due to rounding, sometimes significantly.
Yeah, because Algebra 1 is only like
Yeah.
30%, 40%. And Algebra 2 is like 110%.
Got it. The 110 makes more sense. The 40 is probably an error on my
Okay.
part. The rounding can literally bring it up or down by a lot, but I'll check the
Okay.
wording.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Science. Only 3 of our grade levels took the science assessment. Oh, to find my place because I went back to 16. So we've got most of our kids needing strong support, and the 12th graders really showing us, that either, I think they were surprised, we prepare them, we tell them they're taking this assessment, but they're graduating. So I think a lot of times it's difficult for them to see the need, but 68% of them needed more support needed. I think also the content, they're forgetting the content. If it's based on all 3 years of high school, 9, 10, 11, some of that content you probably forgot, your biology, your chemistry. So those are our results in science. Now we're going to do some subgroup work, which is always interesting. In ELA, our Asian students continue to outperform the other subgroups. With only 60% of them, with 60% of them needing less support. Our Hispanic students continue to need more support at 51% than the others. There's also 12 students who fell in the other category, and they were 58% needed strong support. For math, similar. Similar idea, our Asian students outperforming our other populations by quite a bit. The next closest one would be our other at 25%. Our Hispanic population and our Black population performing about the same, with 66% of them needing strong support for math. And lastly, for science, no one's scores were particularly spectacular, but as you can see, the Asian population had less support needed, again, at 38%, followed by our white population with 22%. Subgroups for ELA. So this is good to look at because it shows you how our district perform overall, and then compares it to our students with disabilities, our Ls, and our economically disadvantaged students. So overall, 41% of our students who took ELA needed strong support. In comparison though, our special education students with IEPs, 69% of them needed strong support. Makes sense. There's some obviously needs and disabilities that impede them from performing totally optimally on a test like this, especially when we have so many accommodations that we give them to help them be successful. And then 50% of our students economically disadvantaged with more support needed. It helps you see how those subgroups performed in comparison to the rest of the district. For math, similar. 57% of our entire population who took a math test needed more support or strong support, versus our English language learners, 91% of them needed strong support. Our economically disadvantaged students, 66%, and our students with disabilities, 86%. And here you can see our students with disabilities outperformed our English language learners. And science, same idea. Let's do the opposite. 15% of the district needed less support in science, versus 1% of students with disabilities needed less support. None of the English language learners scored in that category, which is that 3, and 9% of economically disadvantaged students needed less support. Those are some of our subgroups. So, any questions before I just wrap it up? All right. Some notable achievements, obviously we have promising scores in geometry. That's the trajectory we want all of our math students to go in. So eventually, hopefully that means that lots of our students will be performing that well by the time they get to that point. Our middle school students taking Algebra 1 are progressing really nicely. And our new elementary math program, Envisions, is yielding really nice changes in students' mathematical thinking. Some things that I didn't add on here are all of the curriculum work that we continue to do, the phonemic awareness work that our ELA supervisor has been doing to kind of shift the foundation and focus more on the science of reading, not discarding balanced literacy because you don't want to swing anyway, but really noticing that our students need a lot more direct instruction, especially our English language learners, on the foundational skills and reading. All of those things I think are promising and hopefully make a difference. We are supporting our students with lots of tutoring opportunities, and many of them are taking advantage of that at the high school, all subjects, including special education and ESL at grades K to 8, ELA and math, and a heavy emphasis on ESL and dual language resources. We are currently at, sorry, I can't pick up my arm. I want to tell you how many ESL students we have this year so far, and we get new ones every day. So we're trying to support them with the right resources and materials and professional development. 457 right now. Last year our number was 322. And I think that number will continue to grow, and our job is to ensure that we are prepared to meet their needs. Any questions about Start Strong? Thank you for your time. It's
Thank you
always a
very much.
pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chang. I know that's a lot of data that you're required to present from the state. It's a lot to absorb. I know our teachers and our staff, our principals, our administrators are all working very hard on the latest data that we have from our students
Yep.
and continuing to move them forward and making sure that they're going to be successful. Thank you.
Absolutely, Mrs. Chiroka. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
I will switch this in a second.
Folks, we'll move on with our agenda. Mr. Brockman, would you take item 6, please?
Sure. I make a motion to approve the following board meeting minutes. Conference public meeting minutes, December 7th, 2022. Regular public meeting minutes, December 21st, 2022. Reorganization meeting minutes, January 4th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The reports are accepted, the minutes are accepted.
Thank you. Any communications this evening?
No communications.
Well, any old business or new business to attend to prior to your report?
I do not.
We'll proceed with your report, please.
Thank you. Good evening to all of our families, guests, and viewers here tonight. Each January is School Board Recognition Month, and recognizing our school board members is an important way to thank our current and former school board members for all of their dedication and service on behalf of our community. Our 9 North Brunswick Township School Board members, just like all school board members in New Jersey, receive no pay for their volunteer service. Although elected, these dedicated school board members provide countless hours of volunteer service to our school district and community in order to make the North Brunswick Township schools the best that they can be. So we thank you for all of your service to the students, families, and staff in North Brunswick, and there is a small token of a nice certificate for you, just saying thank you for everything that you do. You will see the calendar for the 23-24 calendar school year on our agenda for approval tonight. This calendar is a culmination of earlier surveys to both staff and families for feedback on priorities. Based on that feedback, school will continue to start right after the Labor Day holiday for students, but prior to Labor Day for our staff professional days. This allows us to get a jump right into learning following the Labor Day holiday. We will continue to offer the week off in November. For this particular year's calendar, you will see that there is no Rosh Hashanah or Diwali holiday, as both of those fall on the weekends of this particular calendar year. And we will make those judgment calls each school year based on the particular calendar that is in front of us. We have slightly changed the format for this calendar this year and hope that it will be a clearer format for families to follow, and we will continue to share a separate half-day calendar for individual school levels once those are finalized at the school level. So far, it has been a relatively mild winter with more rain, as we're seeing tonight, but please continue to keep an eye on our website, social media, and Kimbo messages in case of inclement weather and any changes to our school schedule. That is it for my report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Soroka. Student reports. Good evening, guys.
Good evening. For starters, the Alchemist Theater Company put on a successful production of Theater Review on January 13th and 14th.
The Human Rights Coalition held a fundraiser to help those that were impacted in Puerto Rico by Hurricane Fiona. Basically, students signed a poster in the Commons to help raise funds and show their support.
This week at the high school is our Winter Pep Week. Students have been participating in themed days. Monday was Pajama Day, Tuesday was Sports Day, today was Holiday, where you dress up as your favorite holiday. Thursday will be Class Color Day, and Friday is Always Blue and Gold Day. This week will culminate our pep rally, where we recognize our winter sports teams and have our class competitions. And we will see if the sophomores will hold on to the Spirit Cup, which they will not.
And then as part of Pep Week, we're continuing to raise funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So the classes are, one of the ways is the classes are competing to see who can make the longest paper chain, and they do this by donating money towards the charity. All proceeds will go towards our $5,000 fundraising goal for the year.
Yes, and this Friday is our talent show, and we have 16 participants participating this year. And the show begins at 7 on the 27th, and admission is $5.
You should come because you might know the MCs. And then the last thing is on, date's not here, but during January we held a Diversity Days talk where students during period 12 and right after school were invited to come to the new cafeteria and work with some teachers and administrators to have dialogue about diversity, unity, and different DEI topics within the school and how the school can address that stuff. And it was just a great day for all students, teachers, and administrators involved to really understand how people view diversity within the school and how students are feeling. And it was a great event for all involved. But that's it. Also, congratulations, Mr. LaGuardia, President.
Thanks. Thanks, Gerard. Thanks, Matthew. We'll move on to our committee reports. We've reorganized our committees, so this will be the first time going around for our new heads of our committees. We'll start with Human Resources. Mr. Wen?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Human Resources Community Relations Committee met on January 18th to discuss various personnel and community topics. For those on tonight's agenda who are either resigning or retiring, the board thanks them for their service and wishes them well. Replacements for these positions have already been posted or are on tonight's agenda for approval. There are several new hires on the agenda for both certified and support staff along with substitutes, and we welcome them all to the district. We discussed any upcoming leaves of absences and how those positions are being filled. Mrs. Kita informed the committee of upcoming teacher job fairs that she and other building administrators will be attending, one being on January 18th and another on January 26th. There was also a first reading on updates to several policies, including harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and other ones regarding safety drills, which can be found on tonight's agenda. Central Office will also be working with school principals on launching a new climate survey to staff, students, and families in the coming weeks. And lastly, Mrs. Shiroka and Mrs. Kita informed the committee of the next MBTHS Hall of Fame round of nominations, which will be coming out this spring. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Wen. Business Operations, Ms. James?
Surely, Mr. President. The Business Operations Committee met on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. The committee has reorganized due to Mr. LaGuardia now sitting as board president. I will be delivering these reports for the balance of the year. During our committee meeting, we discussed facilities, finances, transportation, district operations, and proposed policies up for first reading. As it relates to facilities, we discussed that the roof at the high school is substantially complete with an anticipated completion by the end of this month. The solar project is also ongoing with an anticipated completion by the end of this month as well. Also at the high school, there will be a security booth added as an added security measure. The water damage that occurred at the high school that was remediated using emergency status to address the need of repairs and new items for that area. Those losses are being submitted to our insurance carrier. The committee discussed the disposal of certain items that are no longer needed, useful, or in good shape. The New Jersey Clean Energy Program will be coming out to check on the status of our solar panels on our buildings as part of its inspection. The district will be replacing the HVAC in the cafeteria of the kitchen at Linwood using ESSER funds. In addition, the district is assessing the HVACs district-wide. Some of those units are aging, some of which had to be rented due to issues, one of which being the software. The district is exploring solutions to the problem, which will likely include the application of a ROD grant. Once the DOE does release this application, the district will apply to get those pressing concerns addressed. The committee discussed the improvements to our preschool playgrounds and courtyards. Livingston Park LP was recently completed, which is a joy for our students to have access to updated facilities to keep them energized and engaged. As it relates to finance, the committee discussed the AFCR audit, which is ongoing and presently due before March 17, 2023. The date for the presentation to the board and public will be forthcoming. Additionally, there is a recommendation to remit the amount of $38,000 for our prior involvement with the county JIF. We discussed that internally and have made that recommendation for tonight's agenda. The district continues to monitor in areas such as transportation, charter costs, special education, and health costs as well, as our ongoing responsibility to be as fiscally responsible as possible. As it relates to transportation, the district is looking at budget projections with us maintaining a two-tier structure with no impact on the start or end times, and is in the process of planning, projecting for transportation costs and routes for the upcoming year. As it relates to district operations, the district will be renewing its lease with our copier provider with some cost savings to the district and increased efficiencies. As for policies, the committee had its first reading of 3 policies, which are in the board's bylaw policies, and our policy provider will be conducting a wellness check of those policies to ensure that they are current and reflect the current status of the law with needed recommendations. We'll await that report and take the needed action when that time comes, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I would defer to Dr. Patel for an education report. She couldn't join us this evening, so I'll try to do my best to give this report as well. The Education Committee met on Wednesday, January 18th as well. Among the items we discussed pertaining to assessments and grants, the seal of biliteracy exams took place the week of January 9th, and this is when our students graduate. They will be able to have a seal on their diploma indicating as such. The Linkit Form B was administered January 9th to January 13th. The NJSLA trainings for our team here in the district were to be completed the week of February 10th. Our school-based NJSLA preparations will begin in February, and our Start Strong results will be presented at this board meeting. In the area of pupil personnel services, we were joined by Mr. Harry. He discussed a couple of concepts with us, including targeted review and child find, as well as the preschool expansion. In the area of curriculum and instruction and technology, Dr. Johnson joined us, and among the items we discussed with him were the rollout of this cybersecurity duo, where a multi-factor authentication was rolled out to the staff, and it's a requirement for our cyber insurance for our staff members. We also learned from him that the February professional learning focus will be on social emotional learning, and that'll be for PK through 12. And then finally, we discussed some policies and regulations like the other committees. Ours pertain to, and these are on our agenda this evening as well, bilingual and ESL education, emergency virtual or remote instruction programs, student enrollments and enrollment accounting, and student records. And then we also discussed the 2023-24 school calendar, and that would conclude that report as well. Mrs. Keefe, was there anything for negotiations?
I have nothing for negotiations at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else with any committee reports? Thank you. Mrs. Keefe, would you take item 9, please?
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to approve the administrative, student, and committee reports.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All the reports are accepted.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to review our agenda for this evening's meeting. Just as a point of order, we all received this electronically. If anything is updated from what we have received electronically, it's in bold print for us this evening, as we've discussed in the past. So with that, we'll begin reviewing tonight's agenda. We can begin with page 3. Please let me know if you have questions as we review the respective pages. Page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, and page 9, page 10, and page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, and page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, and page 20. Any further questions on tonight's agenda? So we'll be voting shortly in consent agenda fashion. Hearing none, we're going to open it up to the public at this point. This public session is for agenda items only. We will have a second session later for items pertaining to anything. So we're open for any questions on tonight's agenda. If you have any questions, please approach, and you'll have 3 minutes. Seeing none, would someone please move to close this public portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This portion is closed.
Thank you. Ms. James, would you move on item 13 for consent agenda, please?
Sure, I move to approve the following consent agenda items: personnel, curriculum, miscellaneous, finance items 1 through 3, policy, and transportation.
Second.
Any further discussion before our vote? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Ms. Keefe?
Yes.
Mr. Legori?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
And Mr. Wen.
Yes.
All the motions have been approved.
Thank you. For those following along, we're up to item 14 on page 19. This is our public session on any matter. If anyone would like to approach to discuss any matter with the board, now would be your opportunity. Please approach, and you'd have 3 minutes to talk. Hi.
Hi there.
You'll need to sign in,
Sure.
and then just please give us your name.
Hi, everyone.
And just, I'm sorry, just speak into the microphone as well. If you could pick it up out of the stand so they can hear you at home.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Yvonne Michael Lopez. I'm a resident at 53 Claremont. Been a resident of North Brunswick for 28 years. I'm also a member of the North Brunswick Adult Drama Group, of which I've been a member since 2004. Over the past 2 years, due to COVID, 3 years due to COVID, we've been on hiatus. So for those of you who don't know anything about our group, it's 50 years in this township, started performing at Parsons School, was supportive of the first theater that was built here at the high school, and lent our support as well to the second theater that was built, which we've been using since 2006, I want to say, on that stage for our productions. This year, we're happy to be back to perform. We have met formally as a group twice. Last week, we met with Heather Tedesco, who's our new director, and we met with Luann Benson, who is from the township. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the board for their support over all these years of our group. We are so happy to have the wonderful facilities of the high school to use for our group in doing our productions. This year, we're very happy to be back on stage again the weekend of March 3rd. And we'd like to invite all of you out to see our show. It's going to be a theater review this year. There was not time to secure rights to a show, but we'd love to have your continued support, and we do thank you for that. And if any of you have an inner artist, inner performer in you and would ever like to participate, please come out. It's a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming
you.
out. We appreciate the
Thank you.
partnership,
Looking
and good luck
forward
with
to
the
it.
show.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none, would someone please move to close this public portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This public session is closed.
Thank you. And with that, item 15 will be going into closed session. So whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 2231 PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presented do exist, now therefore be it resolved by the North Brunswick Township Board of Education that the public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows: negotiations, personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matters shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Would someone please move for us to go into closed session, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We can go to closed session.
Thank you. At this time,
you.
Would someone please move to, that the meeting be returned to open session?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are back in session.
Thank you. 3 matters. First, the matter pertaining to personnel. Mr. Wen?
Sure, I would like to make a motion to suspend employee number 6511 with pay effective January 10th, 2023, pending further action by the board.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Hawk will need a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ali?
Yay.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Ms. Keefe?
Yes.
Mr. Legori?
Yes?
Ms. Toth?
I abstain.
And Mr. Wen.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 2, the sidebar.
I would like to make a motion to approve a sidebar agreement between the North Brunswick Township Board of Education and the North Brunswick Township Education Association for the 22 to 24 contract agreement relative to Article 16.C.6.B.
Second.
Any further discussion? We'll take another roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
I abstain.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Ms. Keefe?
Yes.
Mr. Legori?
Yes?
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
And Mr. Wen.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And finally, the student matter.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to reverse the administration's determination in harassment, intimidation, and bullying case 236862 NBT 102-52022.
Second.
Any further discussion? One more roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Ali?
Yay.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. James?
Yes.
Ms. Keefe?
Yes.
Mr. Legori?
Yes?
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
And Mr. Wen.
Yes.
And the motion passes as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.